So you remember the thing about Pam? You asked me, was I familiar with the case?
Right.
And I said, no. So I went in there blind, but it was pretty easy to understand what happened. This, I do remember partly what happened a few years ago.
Back in 2014.
Back in 2014, I do remember that there was a girl who kind of coerced her boyfriend into committing suicide. And I think she was convicted, but I don't remember for sure.
And the show doesn't go through that yet?
The show doesn't go through the trial. They're approaching the prosecution at this point, and they're deciding whether or not they want to bring the case. They think they might be able to prove manslaughter, but the trick is that they have to prove that it wasn't assisted suicide. Because if it's assisted suicide, there's nothing saying that that's illegal in Massachusetts.
Right. But, like, did it start back in 2007? Because it spans 7 years.
2007? No.
Oh, where does it start?
Okay, so we're given the timeline of 2012 and 2014.
Okay.
2014 is when he actually commits suicide.
Right, that was when it actually happened.
So when you say 2007, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
The show is supposed to span 7 years. So I was wondering if it was supposed to be something.
I think it goes to 2019, doesn't it?
2019, okay.
So 2012 to 2019. Where's 2007 from? I'm still on.
Because 2014 is when the event happened, so I thought 7 years prior to that was 2007.
No, the two main characters don't even meet until 2012.
Oh, okay.
So the show's name is The Girl from Plainville. First episode is 43 minutes. We're talking about the first 3 episodes. It's on Hulu. It's rated MA. And it's your basic true crime show.
So it was just like
it's based on real events. It's got some fictionalized drama thrown in there.
Right, it's supposed to be surreal, right? In some instances.
What do you mean by surreal?
Like there's a song and dance number that happens, at least in this, or it's supposed to happen.
She sings to herself in the mirror because she's obsessed with Glee, and then there's a moment where they're texting where it's showing them just talking to one another, like they're on a basketball court. And instead of showing the text message conversation, I thought it was effective in that way. That was in the last episode.
When I read about that, it reminded me of the Key and Peele sketch, almost like kind of taking completely out of that because the inflection.
It's just a different way to show a conversation that doesn't rely on the audience having to just read a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But in that first episode, you also get this mental health disclaimer that starts off the episode.
Right.
So I, again, didn't know anything about this show until I kind of realized about 10 minutes in, oh, it's that case. You know?
Oh, okay. So, but did you ever see the actual Michelle Carter? Like what she looked like?
I think so. She doesn't look like Elle Fanning. It is Elle Fanning, right?
It is Elle Fanning.
And Elle Fanning's from Super 8. That's where I've seen her before.
Yeah, that was her breakout role.
And when I was thinking about Super 8, I was like, that came out before Stranger Things, but the characters involved are very similar to the characters in Stranger Things.
Yeah, well,
this is a little off topic, but that I
think the reason for that is because Stranger Things and Super 8 were both kind of paying homage to the Steven Spielberg ET-S type movies.
They both took place in the 80s.
Yeah, coming out back then.
But that young love, that kind of like childhood romance type thing between the two of them. Yeah.
It's weird you say that Elle Fanning doesn't look like Michelle Carter because a lot of people say that it was dead on.
My memory of this isn't the best. I didn't pay a ton of attention to it, but I thought that she was shorter, that her eyes were a little bit bigger. I don't know though.
There's no accent, right? It's not like before.
Oh no, like all these other shows that we've been doing where they've had a corny accent. No, right. But the episodes are like different in that the first episode seems to paint a light for Michelle Carter as this demonic figure.
Okay, you're right.
And then episode 2 tries to humanize her.
So they both sides it.
No, but they make it seem like in the first episode that she is a psychopath. That she does not have any feelings other than she wants people to sympathize for her and like her. Because not only is it clear that she's covering up all the evidence that would show her having any presence in the boyfriend's state of mind
Conrad
to kill
Roy.
her,
yeah,
to kill himself. But she's also like guilt tripping people all the time. She's trying to push her way into the grieving people's family. She's trying to she is about the thing about Pamming it, where she like shows up at the family's doorstep and being like, you're going to include me in this because I was the love of his life, even though her parents and his parents really had no idea that they were even in a relationship.
Well, I Love You Now Die kind of did the same thing. It was a 2-part documentary based on the same series, came out in 2019 on HBO, where the first part kind of showed it from Conrad Roy's perspective and his family, and then the second part showed it from kind of the Michelle Carter, the whole case that...
You don't see Conrad's real perspective until episode 2. You use Conrad's perspective to humanize her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, okay, that's interesting.
So the first episode's called Star-Crossed Lovers and things like that. Every episode title is based on a line that usually Michelle Carter has said, but like in the third episode, I think Never Have I Ever is said by one of her friends.
Is that like a game they play?
But like, yeah, in the third episode. Star-Crossed Lovers and things like that, it's almost a teller in that it's so cavalier. Like, it's like, and things like that, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like usually Star-Crossed Lovers is pretty intense.
And then you just throw, like, this last thing in
so
there.
the things we learn about Michelle really early on is that she's from the rich part of town. Her parents are completely unaware that she's in a relationship. She has a sister. She likes the book Fault in Our Stars. They show that on purpose.
John Green.
It romanticizes death.
Yeah.
And it also is a teenage love story. So from my perspective, I'm like, okay, this is a girl who is kind of in her own delusion that has really put a focus on wanting to almost recreate what she's read in this book.
I agree with what you said, but you said that this takes place in 2012, right?
2014 is when it takes place.
So that would have been like a couple years right after the movie came out, I think, also. Or right when the movie came out, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that, like, yeah, timelines.
Yeah, she's also super melodramatic, as I hinted before. She's constantly guilt-tripping people, and she's made her own alibi by sending her friends a bunch of text messages over the course of the last few days of Conrad's life, being like, I'm really worried about him. Where is he? Things like that.
Okay.
Very similar to the thing about Pam, where she's doing the opposite, where she's creating an alibi that says, Karen was alive?
Yeah, right. I remember that.
At the time, right before she murdered her.
The thing is that I know that the showrunners were able to give Elle Fanning, like, the actual text messages. They had to, like, go to, like, I think the actual government and get the text messages because they were locked up, but they were actually able to do it. So that conversation that you were talking about earlier was probably the actual text messages that were sent.
Yeah, we get a lot of text messages throughout this thing. And they also refer to the text messages constantly. The detective is the person who starts seeing this as a very suspicious kind of motive behind Michelle and Conrad's conversations. He's able to collect over, like, huge box full of printed document text messages.
Right.
And he's, like, read through them all. And most of them are just kind of like teenage gobble gook, you know? And then at the very end of it, though, it starts getting really like she's pressuring him, she's coercing him, she's encouraging him.
In what way? Like, is he just saying that he wants to...
She's just feeding his depression almost and saying, you got to do this. If you're never going to do it unless you do it right now.
Wow.
Like, get back in the car. This comes back to what all these shows tend to do, all these true crime shows tend to do. They give us the ending right at the start. They tell us what's going to happen. They kind of show the character in its full light. So over the course of these episodes, I'm not really learning anything that essential that I couldn't have just pieced together from episode 1. And that's why I don't really appreciate or like these shows now. That I'm starting to just get sick of them. And it's not because of the production. It's not because of the quality of the acting. It's not because of even the writing. It's more just, I have seen this. It's predictable. And 10 minutes in, I just got this sinking feeling as I'm like, she's clearly just a monster in disguise. In episode 2, it's a bit of a reprieve, as I said, because in 2012, when they showed Conrad and Michelle first meeting, boyfriend and girlfriend, away in Florida, they're a happy set. They actually connect, and I'm like, for what happened to Michelle over the course of those 2 years that broke her and made her so vindictive or... like, I don't know how to describe her. She is a head case. They're both on medication. She's
like
supposed to be taking Prozac.
Or,
yes, antidepressants. But with her, she legitimately seemed to like him in 2012. And in the first episode, we see her going through every length possible to try to manipulate people. Even at the end, she's giving a fake speech that she's just copying from Glee, because the guy who died in Glee
right.
they did that special episode with him.
The
This is the
quarterback,
part
I
that
think.
felt a little creepy because I was like, that's a real thing that happened. And in the show, they're fictionalizing the thing that happened.
That was the one. That was my main question about the show. It seemed like they were sensationalizing it. I saw a review where where like kind of the interviewer kept asking because they had like the main cast there if that's what they were doing, and they were like, no, we don't want to try and like stigmatize this or you know do anything like that. We're actually trying to give a lot of like respect to the actual thing that happened. Like for example, they went to Conrad Roy's mother to just kind of like get her side of the story. Yeah, Lynn Roy.
She's the divorced mom. Both families, Michelle's and Conrad's, Conrad the third, because his dad's named Conrad, and then his dad's named Conrad. They're both kind of dysfunctional in different ways. But Conrad's family is just tough love a little bit. Like his dad isn't a terrible dad, but he definitely wasn't there. Like he gets mad at him super easily. He never actually hits him, but you can see that
Like
why.
strict.
Yeah, like Conrad ditches his sister at one point to go hang out with Michelle when they first meet in Florida. And then when Conrad comes home from this really fun night that he had with Michelle, then his dad just grills him about the fact that he left his sister alone, that he ditched his sister, which technically as a parent, I don't know what you do in that situation because it's like, yeah, you do want to kind of get mad at that she's the younger sister. He needed to be there, but he took it really hard.
Like harder than he should have.
Like angry hard. Like he just starts bawling and then his sister comes in to try to console him and he just yells at her. And it's like clearly this guy is depressed. He doesn't like going to school. He's been working on the boat with his dad. His prior relationships kind of were online and even those ones got messed up because the parents of the person he was dating online didn't want to talk to him. He already tried to commit suicide. In the third episode, we see his first attempt. At the very end of the episode, he's taking the Tylenol out. And then this... So, yeah, like...
You got the back... But, like, did the backstory work? Because I know that...
Yeah, it works fine.
I know that Colton Ryan said that what he was kind of disappointed about was that right as he got the role, what he did was he went to the Wikipedia page just for, like, the very first thing to see what it was about. And the Wikipedia page...
Colton Ryan Conrad?
Yeah, Colton Ryan is
yeah.
Conrad Roy. When you got to the Wikipedia page, it just said the death of Conrad Roy. It didn't actually say like much about like the fact that he was an actual person. So the
death is tough too because it happens 5 minutes away from his house. Apparently, he had hung out with his mom that day. He took his Ford, drove behind, I guess, a Kmart parked with a water pump in the back. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a generator at first. Turned it on, kept the windows closed, and the button that makes sure that there's no like air coming in from the outside, and just kind of like dozes off.
Is that how they started?
Carbon monoxide poisoning, I assume, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of the breaking of events. The way they started off is just a text message chain over the Ronettes playing "Be My Baby."
So you get the three dot type thing.
And at that time, for some reason, I thought I had cracked the case and that she had switched phones with him. I thought one was texting, that Michelle was texting from Conrad's phone, and then later on we saw them flip, but that wasn't the case. I realized I was just wrong.
It was just actually a text message chain.
But yeah, it was interesting seeing the old phones because I feel like phones are used the same way cars were used back in the day to date something.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you
especially
see
now,
the
like,
age of a smartphone,
the
you're able to tell.
generation of an iPhone. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because hers is sort of a BlackBerry mix, like where you can flip it out and like type on it as well, and then you can also close it down. It doesn't matter. The death was really preventable, it seems like. It wasn't until the second episode, though, when we start seeing Michelle actually cry over the fact that Conrad was dead. Before that, we'd seen her sort of melodramatic fake crying. In episode 2, we see her kind of get like a flash of all the times they'd hung out together, and even a flash forward to something we hadn't seen, which was actually interesting.
Yeah.
And then she just starts crying, and then that makes her text one of her friends, Natalie, exactly what she did, which she was like, I could have stopped him. I told him to get out of the car. And I was like, there you have it.
So she actually admits it.
Yeah. That's the thing that the prosecutors are going to use to nab her.
Right, yeah. I mean, Elle Fanning said that the main weapon in this show are phones. So, like, when you're talking about the different type of phones and everything.
They got a warrant for her phone and her computer and anything connected to the internet.
That's the main thing. I know that they also shot it in Georgia. Really fast, do you know where Colton Ryan is from, where you've seen him before?
No.
He was the main role, at least kind of one of the main roles, Samuel in Little Voice. He was also in Homeland, J.J. Elkins for like 3 episodes and one episode.
Wait. Little Voice, unless he was the Down syndrome brother, I don't think I remember seeing him.
Oh, okay.
But in this thing, at first I was like, oh no, he's way overaged for this part, and then later on he actually does sound like a kid. So I was like, oh no, that is
sound like a kid.
Well, like I was able to see him more as a kid, but the first second you see him, he looks like he's 25. So it does take a moment.
I think he is around 25 or like 26.
I'm saying the acting's okay. The show does remind me a little bit of Cruel Summer. It doesn't do the stark difference between like depressed now versus, or like the light coloring for like a happier time in the past, but it does go to the past a lot to show the happy and the sad and what kind of drove things. What we still aren't aware of, though, is Michelle's motive, and I think that's what they're getting at. We did learn in the last episode, Aya Cash, who's just been showing up in everything. She was from You're the Worst, The Boys, Welcome to Flash.
Oh, right,
yeah. She shows up. She's going to be the prosecuting attorney who wants to be DA at one point, and she's the one who the detective has really relayed all the information of, because at first it's just Detective Gordon questioning Ellie.
You mean Michelle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then by now, I think it's kind of taking that shift over to the trial process. Because the parents are now like, hey, why did the police just come in and take your computer and stuff? Like, they're starting to be worried too. And apparently, I thought that Michelle's parents were going to be a huge motivating factor as to why she turned out the way she did, because they were so absent in her life. They were like, you had a boyfriend when she...
so they really don't know that much.
But that said, like, her boyfriend actually lived an hour away. We get this character named Rob. He was Conrad's best friend, right? Mm-hmm. And Rob was really helpful. He's probably my favorite character because his interview with the cop, which was only like 5 minutes long, actually gave us a ton of good information, being like, oh, of course the parents wouldn't realize that their daughter was... They only met twice in real life. Conrad and Michelle.
Because that actually happened, yeah.
Yeah, this is more of a long-distance relationship. And Rob actually seemed legitimately like upset about his friend, and he is giving Michelle a lot of rope. But yeah, I think the best actor out of all of this is Rob.
Well, I'm not...
Or who you'd want as a real friend. He reminds me of sort of Jeff from the 13 Reasons Why. He's just the guy in his corner.
Well, Jeff was just funny, though.
Yeah, but Conrad also went to parties and stuff where when he was trying to get back in with the high school crowd after spending so much time on the boat. And Rob was clearly the popular dude who was just hanging out. Also, like, Michelle's friend, Natalie, is also sort of the popular girl who wouldn't normally be falling for Michelle's kind of crap that she's spewing, but because of this whole like death that's happened, she feels like she's also like the effortlessly extroverted but still down to earth character,
like a shoulder to cry on.
No, not that. Like, she wouldn't normally be friends with Michelle, but she feels really bad for her, but like in a genuine manner. So the best friends of both the characters seem like really neat people. And that's what makes it extra sad.
I'm not surprised to hear you say that like the best scenes were kind of like maybe the interrogation scene, and that they're shifting towards a trial, because one of the creators of the show, Patrick McManus, also worked on Dr. Death. And then, and Liz Hannah, though, I think is like kind of the main creator, and she's someone who's been able to get like directors like Lisa Cholodenko, who's worked on like Oscar-worthy films like The Kids Are All Right as well. And
I mean, his dad, Conrad II, I guess, is also famous. He was from Bloodline.
Oh yeah, no, that you have also like Chloe Savini, who played Lynn Roy. She's from Zodiac. She's also
from Bloodline.
Yeah, she's been in a ton of like independent things. So they were able to get the cast for this pretty well. And I know that like it took Elle Fanning in terms of like makeup and artists. They were able to get like the best of them again to make it spot on.
It doesn't look like she's wearing much makeup. She's just a kid. Like, again, she is believably 18.
Yeah, well, yeah. But do they ever reference bulimia at all?
They only do it slightly here. In the third episode, her parents are grilling her about the fact that the police were just there. And she's like, you don't understand me. And she starts going into her Glee speech, but her sister calls her out on it. She's like, that's from Glee. So she like runs. So she runs to her room, and then she just starts like eating all these Oreos. So like that was kind of the first hint at it, and you knew that she had psychological issues before this, and not clearly. But there are a lot of characters in this that I'm kind of like not mentioning. You have David and Hayden and Cassie and Sid and Riley. And
Cassie and Sid, like skins?
Yeah, it is like that. Paige. Some of them are family. Chris, Brad. It's a ton of people. Ruth. Point is, there's also this character named Susie, and at first, Susie's been messaging with Michelle this whole time, but Michelle hasn't been getting back to her. And in the third episode, we finally realize Susie's not like a therapist. Susie is actually her best friend before Natalie. And they
did they lose connection?
No, Susie, I think, is lesbian, and she was hoping to have a relationship with Michelle or something, and there must have been a fallout. But something about that precipitated the fact that Michelle, I think, went nuts here and kind of like coerced her boyfriend into killing himself. But we just aren't aware what it is. The reason I'm bringing that up, though, is because I think that Susie is going to be tied in with all the mental distress somehow. And it's just, that's the type of trickle of information, or the information that we're receiving now. It's less about what the end game is, because I think everybody's sort of aware what's going to happen, but just sort of the why it's trying to answer for you. I don't know if it's ever going to get there, though, because even now, I said the first episode painted her like a demon, and it was very hard to see any way of making her redeemable. The second episode still makes her irredeemable. It just makes you wonder what happened between 2012 and 2014, which could have caused her so much anguish that she would not care about forcing her boyfriend.
Isn't that where the mystery comes in, though? Like, isn't that what makes it like interesting?
This is real life, though, and it's. I get what you're saying. If you're really into true crime, you'll love it. If you're not, though, if you're sick of it, then you won't.
So I'm guessing you're not going to watch the rest of the series?
I do like mysteries, and I probably will not watch the rest of the series, no. But after 3 episodes of watching anything, I feel like you do feel a certain amount of gravitation towards, like, hey, what's going to happen next?
It's going to be 8 episodes, and it's only going to be a limited series.
The second episode's called Turtle, by the way. And again, it has to do with their background meeting in Florida. But the reason it's called Turtle is because when they first hang out after dark, they're both having trouble sleeping, and she's like, I have this trick to help you sleep. You just randomly name words that come together until you get kind of bore yourself to sleep, and then they start doing
almost
it
like
together.
The Bo Burnham bit, like where he's like talking about random sentences that just go together.
Yeah. And then they start riffing one off each other, kind of improvising it until they kind of realize that it's like girl, pretty, blah blah blah, kiss, blah blah blah, until they're. Yeah,
I know that Elle Fanning, because you mentioned the Glee thing a couple times. She watched that over and over and over again. Even had it down to the time where the actual actress was blinking, so she was like blinking during the scene. Like, she made sure to like memorize that scene, which I found just a little bit.
There have been
odd.
several scenes that copied that format, though, because she's staring at herself in the mirror, trying to memorize the Glee scene, and then at one point she's singing out the characters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then the next episode you get the same thing from Conrad. He's also singing out the Glee. No, I'm just kidding. But he is looking at the mirror, and he's kind of like hyping himself up. They use mirrors a lot, and these people are staring at themselves a lot. I don't know if that's a device or if they heard that the characters did that in real life.
I think it might just be for the audience, because I know that the writers
it did feel kind of weird.
The writers did say that they did have to make some of it up just to make narrative sense, or to like add some stuff to the plot, which again, you always have to kind of be like cautious about what you're actually watching when you're doing a true crime thing like this. I know that Elle Fanning said that a lot of times on set, that like it was kind of heavy, and so I guess a song and dance number that's going to be coming up later on, because you haven't mentioned it in the episode, she said was like the funnest day that they had on set. The Daily Beast said something that I was interested in, because when I heard this, I was like, yeah, this is going to be another thing about Pam or true crime, series. They said, I thought that I was going to be exhausted by the genre, ready to dismiss it with the exasperation as last month's We Crashed. But they ended up saying that because
We Crashed is just another startup show, and so it's either true crime, podcast recreations, or startup show. If you had started this thing being like, this is based off the podcast that came out 2 years ago, I would have been like, yes, of course it is.
Well, I think that it's loosely based off an article, but going back to the Daily Beast, they said that they really enjoyed it because they didn't feel like it was that, and it seems like every other article has said that same exact thing. They were like, we thought that it was going to be something else, but because it was different, we kind of enjoyed it.
It's better than The Thing About Pam. It's perfectly produced, fine like that. I would give it a 5 out of 10 because I don't want to watch more shows like this. But for someone who, again, is into this, probably 7, 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 episodes have like a mid-7s. It has a 6.8 on IMDb, but a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it just seems
if
like
it was just a standalone thing, and you were to ignore all the ether and the context around how often we're getting these pumped out, then yeah.
People thought Cara Delevingne would have been a good pick for this.
Yes, she would look like that's who, when I think of that character, I think it was her. No, I'm serious.
No, yeah, I know.
I think she probably looks a little bit more like the killer than this person does.
Right, yeah.
It's weird, though, because when they did say the thing about the assisted suicide, that was the first time it even came to mind that she could be proven innocent, because that is basically what she did. This guy was already depressed before he met her, and then she kind of aided / coerced him into doing it. So how do you try her for manslaughter? She wasn't a minor when it happened. She was 18. They make a big deal, but
she wasn't a minor? I thought she was.
Maybe she was, but she was 18 by the time the cop interviewed her, at least. As I said, there were so many characters, and you don't have to mention them all. But the nice thing about having Lynn's character there and having the detective there is that as the audience, a lot of the time when you're watching someone get away with something, you get mad at the rest of the characters for not understanding what's going on. Because you're like, in real life, Lynn is clearly got a guard up from the beginning, but that's just her personality. Like, she's just like, how did my son do this? I thought I'd been asking him. I thought that we were close. One big thing that the son didn't do that was impactful, like emotionally, was that he left everybody a suicide note. Like, he left his dad a suicide note. He left Michelle a suicide note. But the mom found him, and she couldn't find one for herself.
Oh.
And so he felt really bad for her as she was running through the room trying to find them. Yeah.
That is sad.
Yeah, it is. But her kind of edge that she has to her is nice to see in a character like this, because it's not often that you do. And if that's her personality in real life, good for her that she didn't just buy into this girl who randomly says that she was dating her son. And then the detective, it's weird because, like, you see shows like Unbelievable, and the detectives are shown to be just inadequate, like, terrible people who are looking to just find someone guilty for something. He seems like he's pretty good at his job. But it is clear Michelle is going to need to get a good lawyer, because that is what's coming up right now.
Yeah.
And the only other thing is, like, Natalie, when she gets that text at the end of episode 2, when Michelle just straight up confesses in that text message being like, I could have stopped him, I thought the next time that we'd see Natalie and her, it was a super awkward conversation that happened in the library of the high school, because basically there was just this vibe. But Natalie was not supportive, but I guess she was as supportive as you could be in that instance. Like, she was like, I am asking about you. Are you okay?
Of
like,
Michelle.
blah, blah, blah.
Support, yeah.
Yeah. And what I would think that would have turned her against her. Like,
it doesn't
not that
like
she would have
cross the line.
Yeah. Just receiving that text message must have been scary. Again, the best friends here, Rob and Natalie, I feel the worst for them, but also, like, think, wow, these are kind of cool human beings for kids. So that's basically all I've got on the show.
Only thing else I have to say is that it was given a straight to series order.
Cool. So it's a limited series.
Limited series, yeah.
So it's not going to go another season.
No.
Well, that'll be it for now. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. See you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.